Gentlemen, what if the very creature that you loved the most, the one that you trusted with your heart, your legacy, your very life, was also the one most capable of your destruction? History, mythology, and even modern psychology whisper the same uncomfortable truth, and that is that women, like the mythical Sphinx, they embody both beauty and danger. And just as a traveler at the gates of Thebes faced the riddle of the Sphinx, today's men face the riddle of female nature. If you fail to solve the riddle of female nature, like Oedipus' rivals, you risk ruin, heartbreak, or even death. And I often remind men, there is no rose without thorns. But thorns also exist for a reason. Those thorns protect the rose, but at the same time, more importantly, if you grasp a rose without caution, it will cut you. So the first woman every man knows is his mother. As an infant, he gazes into her eyes while feeding, and he experiences unconditional warmth and nurture. This, gentleman, is his primal blueprint of feminine love: pure, selfless, and protective. But here is a trap, gentlemen. Sigmund Freud tells us in three essays on the theory of sexuality that he describes this early attachment as the foundation of lifelong transference. Men unconsciously expect all women to love them as their mothers did. That is why when you're growing up, insults against one's mother sparks a fight in the playground. We all knew that if you wanted to insult someone deeply, just insult their mother. So the pedestalization of women begins at the breast, and it follows men into adulthood. When men enter relationships, they expect unconditional love, devotion, and sacrifice. But as reality soon teaches, that love is not unconditional. In Unplugged 3, I've laid out the blueprint for female nature and modern women. Those who want to read it in detail, get yourself a copy of Unplugged 3. I look at a number of things, from the way animals and insects interact between the male and the female, the praying mantis, the python, the black widow, and so on and so forth. But today I'm going to cover just 5 of the 15 brutal aspects of female nature. So to begin with, as men growing up, one thing that we learned, I've already mentioned about the breasts and how we pedestalize our mothers, because that's where we first learn about warmth and love and nurture. Then we get the stories of Cinderella and Snow White that make you think that women are these very sweet, beautiful, and guileless creatures. Many men walk into relationships or into marriage with that kind of mindset, and they encounter very brutal aspects of female nature. In the red pill, we normally say that you either love a woman or you know her. So the first brutal aspect of female nature, which most men find jarring, is that women love chaos. From the dawn of civilization, men recognized that the feminine embodied chaos. The Greeks depicted the Sphinx with the body of a lion, the wings of a bird, and the face of a woman, what we call a chimera. It was a chimera or a chimera of seduction and danger. And her riddles, that is the riddles of Sphinx, promised knowledge, but failure meant death. So just as a primer, according to the Greek myth, okay, there was the riddle of a Sphinx. Sphinx was a creature with the body of a lion, the wings of a bird, and the head of a woman. Even in Egypt, when you look at the Sphinx in Egypt, it is that statue is a statue of a Sphinx. So notice the body is that of a lion, it has the wings of a bird, and it has the head of a woman. It even has the head of a woman, it even has breasts. Okay? So the Sphinx is depicted as female. She haunted the road to Thebes, which was an ancient Greek city. It used to stop travelers and demand they answer the riddle before they enter the city. Anyone who failed to answer the riddle was killed and devoured on the spot. Because it has wings, people used to say that in terms of embodying female nature, the Sphinx could tear you because it has talons. It could fly off after tearing you. And it was also very strong, but it also had the seduction of the breasts. So in short, the Sphinx was both a gatekeeper and a predator, an embodiment of danger, intellect, and cruelty. And that's why we want to look at female nature. So the symbolism was quite clear. The feminine is beautiful, the feminine is destructive, and also unpredictable. And the same theme emerges in Pandora. Okay? Pandora was the first woman in Hesiod's works, and he had a book called Works and Days. So Pandora opened a jar, her jar, and later it was what we call Pandora's box. Nowadays, people will say, you've opened a Pandora's box. Pandora's was like the goddess of chaos. So when you're introducing complications or difficult situations, you say you've opened the Pandora's box, or it's chaotic. So Pandora used to open a jar, and by opening it, it unleashed suffering upon mankind. She was basically a beauty carrying destruction. Hesiod was an ancient Greek poet who lived around the same time as Homer, 8th century BCE. And while Homer is remembered for epics like the tales of heroes, like Iliad and Odyssey, Hesiod focused more on cosmology, the gods, and everyday life, and also moral instruction. So back to our story of female nature, modern psychology, it echoes this. There's a book called Sexual Persona by Camille Paglia. And Camille argues that the feminine principle is tied to nature. Nature, irrationality, and disorder. Forces that men have historically sought to discipline through law, culture, and structure. Fast forward to today, we see the same chaos expressed in relationships. Women despise men who commit too quickly to them. Okay? In rational men, we see that Rollo tells us that when a man closes his options and validates a woman with full commitment, her hypergamous instinct interprets this as weakness. If he can commit to me so easily, then he must not be high value. Okay? He can commit to anyone. So this is why the so-called nice guys are punished while the bad boys are rewarded. The bad boys don't give commitment, the nice guys give commitment. So she wonders, why are you committing to me when you commit to anyone else? And so she thinks you are a low value as a result. Commitment signals availability, and availability lowers value. We normally say that women are attracted to what they cannot have. Anything that they can have, they don't value. Okay? So women also get bored quickly, and they need to be romance. This is why you need romance. Romance was developed basically for women. The way people take out their dogs for walks, because if you don't take out your dogs for walks, it's going to tear up all your furniture. is the same way you need to take women for romance. Take her to dinner, buy her flowers, sing for her, and so on, to keep her interested and entertained. So from the findings and research you find from the movie 50 Shades of Grey, we also know that women are more kinkier. And I'll talk about the dark tetrad later, the kind of men that women like and why beauty finds beast to be desirable. So consider polygamy. David Bass tells us in The Evolution of Desire that female competition heightens is heightened in plural marriages. We remember the story of Jacob, Leah, and Rachel in the Bible. It actually plays out what female competition looks like. The constant anxiety of rivals paradoxically stabilizes the male's hold on his women. And this is why most of our forefathers embraced polygamy. Okay? Because they found that dealing with one woman was very, very difficult. So you introduce other women into the equation. And that competition anxiety is what calms her chaos. So this competition anxiety, it quells the chaos by forcing women to fight for male attention instead of turning it outward into drama. So in a sense, it's like they feed from each other's drama and then the man is left in peace. We also have the hookup culture, which has amplified the chaos. Women seek one night stands with alphas, but call committed men disparate. Okay? High value men like Tanzanian musician or superstar Diamond Platinum, they illustrate this point. If you guys are aware, he had a 2023 scandal with a Ghanaian singer called Fantana. Women still cling to him. Even we have a Kenyan woman who has a child with him. We saw Zuchu's public defense of him. He breaks all the rules, and by doing so, it raises his value in the eyes of women, while the better men following rules are despised. Okay? Boredom is another manifestation of female love for chaos. In Willpower, Bioimester tells us that women's moods and impulses, they shift rapidly, and they are often linked to their ovulatory cycle. Men in long-term relationships, they experience this mercurial nature firsthand. Historically, some African cultures actually interpreted this chaos as requiring male discipline and even violence. Okay? That's why sometimes you find people saying, unanipiga kwani mimi ni bibi yako. It was actually societally acceptable for a man to discipline his wife because women were considered to be very chaotic at the time. Okay? So, and in some cultures, even today, some women interpret that if their husbands don't beat them, they don't actually love them. But we know now that it's because women like to feel. And sometimes they just want to feel, even if it's feeling pain, it is better to feel pain than to feel nothing. Okay? So this was crude, but it revealed a truth. Women will provoke men to display dominance because chaos craves order. So even scripture captures this. In Genesis 3, Eve is the one that entertains the serpent first. So chaos entering paradise was through a woman. The ancient Hebrews recognize what modern men ignore, and that is that the feminine is a weak link through which disorder enters. Today, the same pattern persists. In most couples that are engaged in swinging or threesomes, it's overwhelmingly women who often introduce the idea or propose the idea, testing boundaries, inviting chaos. And in common language, the words drama queen and even prima donna are almost always referring to female actors. What's the lesson here? A man must stand as order against the storm. Where women bring chaos, men must bring structure. Where they test, Men must set boundaries. And without that polarity, chaos consumes. Gentlemen, if you're enjoying this video, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it. When you subscribe, you'll always be notified when I drop new content. Also, when you like and share, you help this channel to grow. And more importantly, you help other men to discover the tools that they need to level up. So remember, when one man rises, we all rise. Now let's get back to the video. The second brutal aspect of female nature is solipsism, which I spoke about in an earlier video. Solipsism, in philosophical terms, it basically is the idea that only one's own mind is sure to exist. But now in terms of the red pill context, when you're looking at female nature, it takes on a darker, more behavioral meaning. Women tend to filter reality or entirely through their own subjective point of view, or through their own emotions, their own needs and desires. And they are often indifferent to external truth or the suffering of others. That's why women champion for abortion, okay? And that's why they talk about my dress, my choice. They don't care about how their dressing affects other people. All they care about is how they want to dress. So they're often indifferent to the truth, the external truth or the suffering of others. To a solipsistic woman, the world does not exist as it is. It only exists as she feels it. So this explains why women rationalize behaviors that are destructive, disloyal, or outright hypocritical. I've already mentioned my dress, my choice. She's going to dress in a way that can attract predators or put her in danger, but also not want to be held accountable. A woman who wants to cheat or who cheats will create her own echo chamber. She will craft a version of reality that soothes her conscience. She will frame her infidelity not as betrayal, but as a response to some failure on your part. So take this for example. A wife is cheating with a man that she's emotionally invested in. She denies her husband sex, and when she's questioned, she flips the script and she says, I don't feel loved. Or she'll tell you, I think you're having an affair. The truth is irrelevant. Her solipsism allows her to project her own behavior onto her man. And this is why red pill men say that when a woman accuses you, it is usually a confession. So look, for example, at Jada Pinkett and Will Smith. She slept with Agas Alsina and then blamed Will Smith for not making her feel good for so long. That was a justification. She just turned it on him. To her, this narrative made sense, and that is all that mattered. This is female solipsism. Whether it destroyed Will or made the family a global spectacle was irrelevant. Her solipsistic framing justified her actions in her mind. So, gentlemen, that is female solipsism. She can create her own reality, her own justification, and act out on that particular justification, regardless of what you feel or what you think. And that's why women will tell you when you're having a disagreement that that is your truth. I also have my own truth. Okay? So the transition of that is that reality bends to my feelings, not to facts. There was a story of Uziel Martinez in Mexico, which illustrates this. He gave his girlfriend's mother a kidney. He donated his own kidney to his girlfriend's mother and literally saved her life. But he only got dumped less than a month later. So what about gratitude? What about loyalty? From a solipsistic perspective, those are irrelevant. What matters is how she felt in the moment, not what this guy did to her or to her mother. His sacrifice did not anchor her commitment, her emotions did. And that's one reason we normally tell men, women are only loyal to their emotions, not to the things you do to her or the things, logic, or even the things that you think are important. What's the lesson here? Never expect female behavior to follow your logic or your moral compass. Female solipsism ensures that her rationalizations, no matter how absurd, will always justify her actions in her own mind. And once she feels justified, she will act without guilt. The other thing is that women are moral relativists. This is something that men only struggle, or men struggle with when they discover later on, especially men who are in long-term relationships. So what is moral relativism? In philosophical terms, this is the belief that moral judgments are not absolute, but instead they depend on cultural, situational, or personal contexts. Put simply, what is right or wrong shifts depending on convenience, feelings, and circumstances rather than fixed principles. So, from a red pill lens, women embody this relativism instinctively. A woman may declare, for example, that cheating is wrong, or she can tell you that keeping finances apart in marriage is selfish. But in practice, such declarations are less about principles and more about control. She says what benefits her at that moment, not what she intends to uphold universally. Remember, she can use her solipsistic thinking to turn these whole moralistic statements around. So when the opportunity arises, many women will justify the very behavior they once condemned. And even the sisterhood, other women will also defend her. They'll say, you don't know what she's gone through. She must have had a good reason for doing it. For instance, a woman might shame infidelity when she wants commitment. But when her own desire or hypergamous instinct pulls her toward another man, she reframes her cheating as finding herself, or she claims that her partner was not emotionally available. In a solipsistic and relativistic frame, it isn't betrayal, it's self-fulfillment. So paternity fraud statistics actually support this. They illustrate this very starkly. Studies estimate that anywhere from 1% to 10% of children are being unknowingly raised by men who are not their biological fathers. This is published by Anderson in Population Studies in 2006. That actually is moral relativism in action. The principle of honesty collapses under the weight of convenience and survival. This is why women can suddenly reform during the early courtship phase. She might stop drinking, stop going out, or present herself as a perfect conservative partner, not out of principle, but because circumstances demands it. Once the relationship is secured, the mask falls and she reverts to her old patterns. So Rollo Tomasi notes in Rational Male that women's behavior is best understood, not as guided by not as guided by fixed values, but by the fluid adaptation to optimizing hypergamy. Principles don't guide them, circumstances do. So the most important thing and the thing that guides them is how to optimize the hypergamy. And that is why you'll never find a woman aborting the child of a rich person, of a tycoon, or of a king. The children that they abort normally are children of lower status or lower value men. Men, by contrast, have historically been the ones to die for ideals, causes, and abstractions like freedom, democracy, or nationhood. In Denial of Death, Ernest Becker argues that men often seek symbolic immortality through ideals. even at the cost of their own lives. Women, on the other hand, they place survival, provisioning, and convenience above ideals. When the Taliban took over Afghanistan after the American soldiers left, if you can remember, Hillary Clinton was saying how these Talibans are torturing women and children. But the women are not going to do anything about it. They wanted men to be the ones to go and save these women and children. And this is why Red Pill asserts that women are not keepers of values. They adapt, they rationalize, and they redefine morality depending on how it serves them in the moment. So, gentlemen, do not take a woman's stated principles at face value. Vet her history, because past behavior, not present declarations, reveals her true orientation. If you fail to grasp the reality of female moral relativism, you risk building your life on sand. So, gentlemen, the riddle of the Sphinx remains before us. Do you understand the duality of female nature, beauty and danger, nurture and betrayal, love and opportunism? Or will you, like the countless men in history, walk blindly into her jaws? The choice is yours. I'm going to ask you now, have you encountered the mask slipping when the woman you thought loved you revealed her darker side? How did you respond? Did you learn or did you bleed? Share your answers in the comments below, because this conversation, this awakening, is how men solve the riddle before it devours them. We will continue with more brutal and dark aspects on female nature in the next video. And I'll see you on the next one. Gentlemen, mark your calendars. On Saturday, 4th of October, 2025, we're going to meet at Ololtepe's picnic site in Kiserian. So we're going to be meeting from 4 p.m. Till late, and it's going to be more than just nyama choma. This is going to be about brotherhood, it's about networking, and also having deep conversations with fellow unplugged professionals. So if you've been looking for a space where unplugged men gather together to exchange wisdom, to sharpen each other for the journey ahead, then this is it. So I'm inviting you formally. Come hungry, come ready to network, and come ready to level up. So register as per the instructions on the flyer on this particular video. And your registration matters because it secures your seat in this particular gathering and it keeps the circle strong. So see you on the Nyama Fest on 4th of October 2025.